Can you identify as something before you are that something?
There is some work that looks at kind of trying to identify growth versus fixed mindset.
If we compare motivation and consistency, what is the difference there?
The outcome is consistency. We're seeking consistent behaviors. So what is the inputs in order to get there?
Kasey, welcome back to the Broads podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here again.
Thank you so much. You are still one of my top episodes on this podcast. You came in February of this year. And so I'm so stoked for you to be back to talk all about mindset.
I'm doing every 6 months thing.
Yeah, let's just keep it going.
Keep it
You
going.
have so much knowledge to give, and I'm super excited to have you back. So welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
How are you feeling about going into the new year?
I'm always excited for a new year. It feels like and we'll get into this when we talk about New Year's resolutions and stuff, but it feels like a fresh start. And I think that is the case for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That they feel like, oh, I'm actually getting to really pay attention to what's coming up versus focusing on all the things that went wrong or what I didn't like about the last year.
Yeah.
And there's actually some research to support that is a really beneficial thing when it comes to setting goals and actually hitting them. So
yeah. Let's start there, actually. New Year's resolutions, good or bad? Are they, good or bad?
I feel like, and you can let me know, I'd actually be curious what your perspective is too, being so much in the fitness space, that New Year's resolutions get a lot of hate. Mm-hmm. That it's sort of like this, why do you have to wait till the first of the year in order to set a goal? Why can't you do it any other time of the year? Yeah. Or none of them ever actually work anyway. People throw out random statistics all the time, only 2% of people who set resolutions actually stick to them for the long term and all of this stuff. And for me, as a mindset researcher and having spent so much time on how our beliefs play a role and what we do and what actually ends up happening, that all this is doing is perpetuating this belief, a fixed mindset belief, really, that New Year's resolutions don't work and we shouldn't set them and all of this. But to me, also, I don't really see that much of a difference between setting a goal and setting a resolution. So I think it's interesting because you'll hear the same person talk about, I'm not talking about any one person specifically, but you'll hear the same person say don't set New Year's resolutions. They don't work. People don't stick to them, but then turn around and talk about goal setting. And to me, we're talking about the same thing. Ooh, and in fact, the New Year's resolution time period is a really powerful time to be setting a goal. So yeah, but I would really like to hear what you see as far as resolutions.
Well, you're already changing my mindset around that because I really appreciate it, because really you're setting it up as if I'm just going to fail, why would I do this kind of thing? Mm-hmm. I am big on goal setting and feel like it's going to get you started. Mm-hmm. But I think looking at the entire year is so much more valuable. And so I'm let's start tomorrow. Let's start on Friday at 12:45. Yeah. It doesn't matter what time you start. But for most people, they need a fresh kind of beginning. They need to prepare for it. They want to get through the holidays. That is okay. But I think if you have something small that you can start to do now to even prepare you, it's almost like a pre-resolution to the resolution, because I feel like that's where people are setting themselves up for failure, is that they're trying to change 10 things at once. Oh, yeah. Rather than doing a couple things and then maybe 3 things at the start of the year. So that's kind of how I think about it. I don't think of it as a yes or no. It's not a bad thing, but for my audience specifically, we don't do a ton of we don't get a huge influx of new people in January.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I would say for the most part, we get a big influx in the fall, winter. And it's not January 1, I get thousands of clients. That's just kind of how I have it set up.
Yeah. Which is interesting too, because we do commercial gyms and stuff. We'll see a lot more people coming in too. And with that though, I definitely agree that people often need a something to get them going. Yeah. And actually in the research, there's this term called temporal. That's tempura.
Tempura sushi.
Yeah. Temporal landmarks, which is essentially temporal, meaning time, a certain place in time that is a landmark for you, whether that is the first of the year, it's your birthday, it's the start of a quarter, it's the start of spring, it's the 4th of July. It doesn't matter. If it means something to you, that is actually a more powerful time to start something because it has meaning behind it. And especially if there's personal significance behind it. So for a lot of people, the start of a new year does have that kind of significance. And research does support the fact that if you're starting something new, you're setting a goal, you're working towards something, and there's a temporal landmark involved as your starting point, you're going to be more likely to stick with it and feel more motivated by it.
Ooh.
So it's interesting that we hear that conversation around, no, just start like any random Thursday, which absolutely, yeah, why do we have to wait maybe 6 months if it's June till it's January to do something for sure? But maybe there's another time point between June and January that you can choose that is of significance to you to start something as well. So again, this is kind of where I'm like, I don't like the whole bashing of resolutions because there is that plus a whole myriad of other things that make it actually a powerful time to do something.
That's such a great point, to have like a specific day or time or event or something that you can lean on, but not having it be just like January 1st. It could be, like you said, a birthday or holiday or something.
Exactly. Like we think a lot of people like, oh, I'm turning 50, I'm turning 40, I'm turning 30. Like they start to think about, what do I want to do with my health? Or what do I want to do for my career? What personal things do I want to work on? It's the same sort of idea. There's a reason that we do that, and it means something, and it is actually helpful.
Well, I guess in that same points then, if you say, okay, I want to do this before my 40th birthday, is that a landmark that you get to? And then would you say that you're typically more likely to fall off after that 40th birthday or after that specific event, wedding, something like that?
Yeah, that's interesting because you're kind of thinking about it in the not necessarily opposite direction. But when I say temporal landmark, I mean having a goal, something that you're wanting to start on a certain day. So like I'm going to start on, we always say like always starting on Monday or starting over all the time on Mondays. But like obviously that Mondays don't have like a significance, right? Unless that Monday happens to be your birthday or January 1st or whatever. But that's kind of the start date versus like you're working towards it date. That would be sort of like like an end landmark versus what I'm talking about is like a starting landmark.
Yeah.
So with your question of, okay, let's say I'm working towards something by a birthday or by something. Actually, I have a friend right now who's turning 37 soon, and his goal is to run 37 miles for his 37th birthday.
Yeah.
So that is kind of like that direction versus on my birthday, I'm going to start training for a marathon, So yeah, I would say where my brain goes initially is like motivation conversation.
Yeah.
So if you're working towards something like to get to a spot, like a wedding, for a marathon, for whatever, and then what happens after is like kind of the piece that we're considering here. A big part of it is going to be, where did the motivation come from to do the thing in the first place? So was this extrinsic, external motivation? Like I want to look good on my wedding day for my husband, for our photos, so I look good in front of all of my friends? Or is it, I want to lose weight and look great for my wedding day because this is a really important day to me, and allows me to kick it off so that I can keep up with some of these health and fitness behaviors after the wedding. That's important to me as I start a family and do all of these other things. Big difference there.
Yeah.
Versus that internal, this is for me, and the external, this is like for something else or someone else. So that's kind of, there's a lot of different directions I could take it, but that's what I think about first.
Why do you think people do start and stop?
I think that motivation piece is another really good example of an answer to a question, this one. Because again, if you are starting something for the quote unquote wrong reasons, wouldn't necessarily say it's wrong, there's something bad about it. Yeah. But if you're doing something for someone or something else, it's a lot harder to stick to it. Which makes sense, right? And if we look at like the spectrum of the different types of motivation, intrinsic motivation is often considered like the best type of motivation that's going to keep you wanting to do it long term and stick with it and not stop and start over and over again. Yeah. And the purest form of that intrinsic motivation is enjoyment. So you actually are doing it and you're motivated to do it because you like it. Yeah. You get personal satisfaction out of it. So yeah, if someone is stopping and starting over, there's a lot of different things that could be at play here, but the type of motivation matters so much more than the amount. I know we're always trying to get more motivation or be more motivated, but the reality is you just need more of the right type, not the wrong type. Outside of that, I mean, I think like specific goal setting strategies can make a big difference too. We've all heard like SMART goals before. I actually have a different acronym and it's smarter goals. But things like setting a goal like I want to be healthier is not very specific. It's
Right.
really hard to measure because it's not specific. Like to what outcome, to what end, what is it for? So if you have really ambiguous goals or desires, things that you're working towards, it's a lot easier to stop because there is no real parameters for starting and keeping going either.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I could talk about a bunch of different directions, but
Well, I'll give you some examples of
Yeah.
clients that I hear all
Perfect.
the time, because women come to me and they're typically not trying to like lose weight or something. They want to just feel good in their body. They want to like maybe get stronger, maybe some sort of body recomp, but they're just like, they don't really have any like specific goals. They just want to like not feel like their parents do, like they do at 70. They want to just feel strong. So like that measurable kind of aspect isn't there. It's more just getting that intrinsic motivation. So like, how do they know like if they're actually like going to stick with it past that like 4 or 5 week mark?
You don't know, I guess,
Yeah.
until you get into it. And I think this kind of like answers your question in a different way too, because we don't know what makes people stop and start over until you're actually speaking to one person who is currently going through that, because their experience is going to be different than another person who's going through that, right?
Yeah.
So for one person, it might be the motivation conversation we were talking about. For another person, it might be that they have struggled with different diet and weight loss programs their whole life and nothing's ever worked for them. So they have this belief that no matter what they try, they're going to fail. So even if they sign up to work with you and they're like, I'm ready to do something different, however, the last 100 things didn't work very well, they may still have a fixed mindset belief in the back of their head that's like, I'm going to do this, but chances are it's not going to go well. Chances are I'm not going to be able to stick with it. And then as soon as something goes wrong, they have some sort of setback, they have a bad week, they just go, okay, well, see, there's more evidence to why I can't do anything. It doesn't matter who I'm working with, even if it's the best coach ever, the best program, this stuff just doesn't work for me. But if they went into that with more of a growth mindset and seeing it as, well, I've never worked with Tara before and I've heard really great things and she's awesome. She has all these great testimonials. So this time is going to be different. Even though I failed 100 times before, I can't compare it to those times. They're going into it with a far different perspective, far different mindset. And so when setbacks and hardship comes up, they might have a moment of like, oh no, is this going that direction again too? But wait, this is different. I have Tara this time. I'm not doing the whole 30 for the 700th time. You know, this is different. So you can kind of like reroute your perspective if you have that mindset in the moment. So that's like a mindset example of what might be going on and causing what can end up being like self-sabotage and all or nothing thinking. It can kind of have all of these downstream effects.
So let's go back to mindset. You definitely talked about this on the last episode, but like a little recap on what the difference between fixed and growth mindset really is.
Yeah. So mindset, when you say this, I mean, the word is everywhere. It is like everyone's favorite buzzword these days, which is great for me being in that business, but also interesting for me, given that I have like the research and science aspect background versus like the woo-woo manifestation background. So when I talk about mindset from a research lens, I'm really saying like this is the lens really that you take to see the world through and make sense of things, assign meaning to things. And from there, we can break it down into growth versus fixed mindset. And what we're really saying here is, do you actually believe that you can change? Do you believe in your ability to develop new skills or learn new strategies and be successful in any given area? And it can be different depending on the areas too. So just because you have a growth mindset about your ability to progress in your career does not mean that you have a growth mindset when it comes to your ability to change your body composition, for example. So yeah, that's kind of very like basics of what we're looking at from mindset and then growth and fixed.
And now I'm sure I know the answer to this, but like if somebody has a fixed mindset, are they able to change it? Like, can they have a growth mindset?
Yeah, this is funny because I had some guy, I think he was just trying to like sell me on something. I'm sure he was commenting on a bunch of my different reels and left a comment on one of them. And I was like, I need to use this for content, even though I know you're not even here for this purpose. You're not asking this question like genuinely. But he asked, if someone has a fixed mindset, can they change it to growth or is it set? And I'm like, whoa, okay. So, because it's basically, we're talking about your mindset, about your ability to change your mindset, right? Like, I'm like, whoa, I could try to take this some direction, but I just might even confuse myself in talking about it. Yeah. But answer is yes, you can change your mindset for sure. Which I love being able to even say that out loud and confidently, because as you're listening to this, now you're actually seeing that and believing that. And therefore you have a better chance of developing a growth mindset in other areas. And it can be that simple too. Like something that you hear one time on a podcast or see on social media can really start to shape how you see things and whether you believe something is something that you're capable of or not, or something that you can do or cannot do. So, yeah, you can definitely change it. It can take time, can take different things for different people, but there's no set fixed mindset.
Is there research behind like you seeing or hearing something from a certain, you know how, I mean, my husband, I'll say something to him like 10 times and he'll be like, well, this person told me this and I think I'm going to do this. I'm like, I've literally told you this 10 times. And is there research behind like you have to hear it amount of times or you have to hear it from in a different way that like makes more sense for you to actually believe it?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Someone needs to do a study and just call it like the husband effect or something.
I'm like,
yes, so many of us have had those experiences where whether it's like your brother or your friend or whatever, and they come and they're like super excited about like, I heard this thing and I think I'm going to do it. And I found this program and you're like, like what? Yeah. We've talked about this 700 times. So not to my knowledge of that specifically. I mean, I know for sure we often need a lot of repetition, which is something I talk to my students who are mainly health and fitness coaches a lot about, because they come to me and they're like, I'm so sick of telling this person the same thing in like 7 different ways. And I'm like, you may need to do that in another 4 to 6 ways before they finally like get it and it makes sense. And repetition is so important, whether it's for habit formation or beliefs. And to be honest too, and to give your husband some credit maybe here too, he may believe you. I do believe that he believes you and he believes in what you have to say and he trusts you and sees you as a credible source. So he's heard it from you so many times that it's kind of been in the back of his mind. But then now someone else is saying it too. He's like, huh, that's interesting because Tara's talked about this before. And now I'm like seeing it talked about from this other person that I trust. And like they have this other direction that's related to that. And now he's bringing it to you. And both of you may not realize how much of an impact your influence was on him, right? It just kind of like all came together that way. Yeah. At least that's how I see it, and just like knowing what I know about how important repetition is and how often we need to hear things sometimes.
Is that the same? Is that true thing? What are words? Is the same true if you want to influence behavior change? Specifically, like if I'm someone that works out and I want my partner or something to also like get in the healthy mindset too. Is that similar? Like the repetition and like kind of showing how you show up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously want to tread carefully here. So we're not just like, hey, so are you gonna go to the gym today? Hey, so I set out some gym clothes for you. Hey, so there's a new gym that's opening up down the street. I don't know if that's, like we don't want to do that kind of repetition where it's just kind of like nagging, because in general, speaking of behavior change, it's always going to work so much better if it's their idea. Yeah. So instead, and this is where we can kind of be sneaky, whether this is with your kids or your husbands or your clients, to present questions and ask more and like seek to understand like maybe where they're at, if they've shared that they are interested in becoming healthier, wanting to go to the gym more often. And you're like, yes, please, because maybe it's something that you do or something that you value or something that you want to be able to do together. Yeah. That instead of being like, so are you gonna, that instead it can become, hey, I know we talked about this like a little bit before. I came across this ad in the newspaper about like joining together for this gym. Is that something you would be interested in, or you're not really like not really into it. And then that opens it up to being like, oh, they're not making assumptions. They're not pushing it on me. They just found this thing based on our previous conversation. And now whoever it is that you're speaking to could come back to you and be like, oh, yeah, like, let me look at it. Like, I'll think about it. Now, don't go back every 2 days. Like, did you think about it yet?
Yeah.
How are those thoughts going? But instead, just like let them come to you and just like continue to ask questions and see where they're at and try to better understand. Because otherwise, the more we push and nag, the more they're going to go the other direction. There's actually a term for this. It's called psychological reactance. Same reason we're like, wow, my toddler will clean his room when he's like excited to do it and wants to like organize things. But when I ask, he's never wanting to do it or like does the opposite, right? Like that's psychological reactance as well.
What can you do for yourself if you're trying to get yourself into this? Like, but what kind of questions could you ask yourself to like get you to change your mindset around things?
Questions you could ask yourself. I think first we want to understand where your fixed mindset is in the first place. So it's hard to change something that you don't know, like what exactly needs changing or improve something that you don't know what needs improving. So seeking first more awareness and understanding of where might your mindset need some support, like even just paying attention to the language that you use with yourself or with other people. Are you saying things like, oh, I'm just not the type of person for this, or I can never do that, or I always do it this way? Like just start paying attention, maybe pull out your notes app and just jot it down every time you're noticing some of these more fixed mindset statements. And then from there, you can start to get into, okay, where did that thought come from? Why am I thinking this way? Was there a situation? Was there a person? Is it even true? Like, that's actually something that I ask myself all the time. If I have like some sort of like little negative thought in the back of my mind, I'm like, is that true? Is that actually accurate? Or where did that come from? Why am I having that thought? And kind of just in general, becoming more of a researcher on yourself, right? And the same thing you could do, like if you're like a coach working with clients, same thing you could do if you're a parent working with your children, to just really, come from a place of curiosity and like, that was interesting. Why did I think that way? Or, that's weird that I feel like I can't do that. It's not like I've ever tried before. So why am I thinking that I can't? Just get curious and see where it goes.
Yeah. And I know you work with a lot of health and fitness coaches. So I'm sure you're like saying all these things and I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that. Be like, yeah, I just can't do it. Or like, I'll never be able to, I'm not the person that can do that. I've heard that so often. And like parts of me, I'm just like, why are you saying that to yourself? And so like, if they're in the moment, they're saying it out loud to me. Okay. I'm the coach. Or even like, maybe they catch themselves saying it out loud to someone else. How can they catch it in their brain so that that's not, because like, we have so many thoughts every single day. How can we catch it there before it like goes down this spiral?
Awareness. I know that's such like a unsexy answer, but if you want to try to catch it in your brain, like before it comes out of your mouth, you have to just start paying attention to your thoughts. And it seems so simple and it's like, okay, Kasey, like you got something that's like more tangible, got my step-by-step instructions or something. But you know how many people are going about every single day on autopilot and are having all of these thoughts, and those thoughts are absolutely affecting them, and they are turning into like the choices that they make and the decisions and the actions that they take in their day, but they have no idea that that's what's happening because they are not aware of their own thoughts and doing some of these things, like asking these questions. Where did that come from? Why am I thinking that way? That's kind of weird. I haven't thought about it that way before, So I think just really taking some time, like I would say if there's a homework assignment to go in this episode, is to just start paying attention to the thoughts that you're having. And sooner rather than later, if you just, next 5 days, just make it intentional. Maybe have a sticky note on your desk or like, what are you thinking? ? Just leave it there to remind you so that when you do have some of, whether it's a negative thought or a positive thought, like I would train your brain in that way too, to recognize like, wow, I'm really proud of myself. Like you're thinking this and it's like, oh, that's cool. I'm proud of myself. Why am I proud of myself? Oh, because I've been working really hard on this project and my boss just said something really great about it. And like the sun is shining today and I feel really good and like all these things. And like, that's just also kind of like micro gratitude practice too, which is important. So you can kind of go both ways because we also don't want to necessarily just focus on the negative all the time. But in order to really start catching the thoughts that you're having, you got to start paying attention to the thoughts that you're having.
Is this kind of like fitness where it's an ongoing thing? Like you have to keep putting in the reps, or are you like, if I'm growth mindset, I'm here forever?
I definitely think it is something that requires continued training. But I would agree, kind of similar to building muscle, that like once it's there, a little bit harder to lose.
Yeah.
However, if you do lose it and getting back into the practice of it, it comes back quicker, right?
Like
so
fitness.
Yes, love that analogy actually.
Yeah. You know, even like we both lift and have been lifting for a long time, but like we can probably take weeks off and be totally fine coming back because like we've built this really solid foundation. With your mindset training, it's like a very similar thing.
Yeah. Do
you feel like growth versus fixed mindset is also a part of your identity?
It's a big question, Tara. I think I know based on research that identity is a part of the equation for sure. In fact, I can use a specific example here. I published a paper when I was still in grad school that was looking at mindsets. Like make sure you can get your own study information right here, Kasey. It was about growth mindset and fitness behaviors. So like basically looking at the question of, does having a growth mindset about your ability to become a fit individual or your level of fitness, does that actually impact how frequently you exercise? And the answer, according to my paper, was yes. And I'll bring this back to identity in a second. So without getting like too technical here, we're looking at the relationship between mindsets about fitness and exercise frequency as like the main relationship, but then had two mediating variables that I tossed into the model to see if like, does this make a difference in this relationship? So if I throw in fitness identity as one of the variables in the relationship between mindset and exercise frequency, does the mindset and exercise frequency relationship still hold? And as it turns out, identity, this fitness identity, is a partial mediator, meaning that what's really going on here is that the identity is what's causing the increased exercise frequency. And the identity is what it is, though, because of the mindset. So it's kind of like your growth mindset about fitness is influencing your identity, which then impacts how frequently you exercise. So that said, we don't necessarily know if this is like a chicken or the egg phenomenon. You know, is it I identify as an exerciser and therefore I have a growth mindset and I exercise more frequently? Like it could very likely go that direction too. But what is cool is that we can see that if I have a growth mindset about my ability to be more fit in my fitness level, that actually starts to build my identity as a fit individual. And therefore I am exercising more. So pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I feel like we're still back into like, can you identify as something before you are that something? Are people born as this, as their identity? You know what I mean? It's like nature versus nurture. Can we use that here too?
Yeah. And I would, okay, there's a couple of things I could say.
Yeah.
Like which way do I want to go?
Give us all of it.
Yeah, there is a lot of research, not a lot, because honestly, this area of research on mindset and fitness behaviors is still relatively small. And there is some work though that looks at kind of trying to identify growth versus fixed mindset and what that means for health and fitness behaviors. And when in the lab and we're doing these studies and you're trying to change someone's mindset and then see what that does for their behaviors and stuff like that, what we'll actually often look at is have participants in the study read 2 articles. You'll split up the groups. One group will read an article that is about how your fitness level or your ability to lose weight, all of these things are relatively fixed and they're based on genetics. So it kind of goes that direction. Like it's based on your genetics. So some people are big boned, you know, it kind of goes that direction. And then the other article, these are both like fake articles, but look real type of thing, talks about how no matter like where you come from, what your genetic predispositions are, you can become healthier, fittier. You can't fittier.
I was like,
add that one to the
let's keep
dictionary.
that in.
Yeah. Healthier and fittier. Oh my gosh, it sounds like a lame like Instagram handle
I
or
love
something.
it.
But you can do all of these things regardless of your genetics and like who you were born as, right? So that's more of the growth mindset message, whereas the like your genetics determine things is the fixed mindset message. And just reading the simple article actually does shift someone's mindset in the moment. And then we can see like downstream effects in some studies where that does actually impact like intention to exercise or eat healthy and things like that. So yeah, that it's an interesting conversation, the whole like, because we know, yeah, we are unique individuals and have certain genetic predispositions and stuff like that. But ultimately, I think the more dangerous conversation is, oh, if I have these genetics or I was born this way or my personality is this or whatever, that I simply cannot change and I cannot enjoy exercise. I cannot lose weight and maintain weight loss, all of these things. So I think that's the more dangerous thing, because once people start to believe that, then it's like, well, what's the point of exercise? What's the point of eating healthy if I'm predisposed to not be able to actually see the outcomes I want anyway? And so now we have this whole host of people who are not taking care of themselves simply because they think that like their genetics are the reason and the fixed reason that they can't see the results that they want. Yeah.
This is so great to put into play, because now it's like, if people can think about this and hear this and be like, oh, this could be the same with not even just health and fitness, but also like, you don't want to be like your parents because they did X, Y, and Z. Like, you can change things as you grow into your person, right? Like your environment changes so much about you as well, right? Like we can have that genetics conversation as much as we want, but like your lifestyle and environment play a huge role in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the control your controllables conversation too,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
Why do you feel like some people think they need to feel ready to actually like accomplish or do the thing?
That's also a really good question. You always have the good ones. Why do people feel like they need to feel ready? So it's interesting because my audience is mainly health and fitness coaches. Yeah. So it's the conversation I'm often having is like, they want clients who are like 100% ready and will stick to the plan and are motivated. I'm like, you do know that 90% of the people out there who need your help are not feeling that way. So you need to be equipped in order to help those people too. So yeah, why do they feel that way? Now I'm thinking, is there an industry aspect of this and messages that are out there of like, you need to be able to stick to the plan if you're going to start something, and you have to feel like 100% motivated. If you start, there's like no going back, you're going to fail. And actually, that could be a big part of it, is that if they don't feel 100% ready and they're still taking the leap, then they are saying yes to a higher chance of failure potentially. Because if I feel ready, then the chances of me failing are probably a lot lower. And then I don't have to like deal with all of that, versus like, I don't feel 100% ready, but like, I'm just going to dive in anyway. There's a huge risk of failure. At least it feels that way. Right. So I wonder if it is sort of like a fear of failure behind it. That's just an opinion. Educated guess. I don't know for sure.
What are you telling your health coaches that are like wanting these clients to be 100% ready to go and they're not?
Telling them that that's not realistic.
Yeah.
It's not realistic. And that, again, I have seen so many like cringe-worthy pieces of content on Threads and on TikTok. It's mostly Threads and TikTok, if I'm being honest, where coaches are literally saying like, talking about stories of where they fired clients because they weren't checking in or they weren't motivated, and I can't be motivated for you, says the coach. And it's so frustrating to me, because that is the position that, again, like 90% of the population is in. They're already feeling low motivation. They're struggling with consistency. They're spinning their wheels. There's so much stuff out there. They're so confused. And so then you've got like this bro on TikTok who's talking about this client that he fired because they're not motivated. Now, everyone else who watched that, who felt that way, was like, number one, not going to work with him. So like, my dude, that was not a great sales strategy.
Yeah.
But number two, they're thinking, wow, if I already feel this way and hiring a coach, I can't feel this way. Am I just like a lost cause? Mm-hmm. Can I not do anything about this? Can I not get help? This is just who I am, and enter fixed mindset territory, right? So yeah, I could go on and on about that, but it's really frustrating to me, and it honestly is like very sad and is not a really great look for the coaching industry either.
Yeah.
And my biggest argument is that there aren't any uncoachable clients. You just don't have the skills and the strategies. You're not equipped to help those that you feel are uncoachable.
Why do you feel like clients just fully ghost? Do you think it's that they feel like they're failing, or that there's like other stuff going on that's more of a priority?
It can be a lot of things. I do think that that's a piece, especially like it depends a lot on the coach and the
Yeah,
coaching
of course.
practices, right? So like the TikTok coach example that I was just using, he has clients who are ghosting, and I'm like, of course you do.
Yeah.
Because you're terrifying,
Yeah.
right? You're talking about how you're firing clients on your social media. So of course, yeah, you have a client who's like on your roster, like shaking in their boots because they didn't hit their macros this week. And they're probably like, I'm better off just not checking in and pretending like I forgot
Yeah.
than having to disappoint my coach, right? And that's like not necessarily like to the extreme example of this Instagram coach, but or TikTok, I suppose. But instead, like really thinking about what is your relationship like with your clients? Because
Yeah.
if they should see you as a little bit of an authority figure, right? Like you're the expert in this space that they're trying to learn more about and gain that from you. But also, if you feel so much like the authority, now it becomes like it's like teacher and student relationship to the point of, oh, I'm not going to really turn this in because I'm scared of like what
Yeah.
grade I'm going to get, or I'd rather just not turn the paper in than fail. Things like that. We don't want to get into that territory either. So like that could be a component of it. One thing too that's like honestly more surface level that I think a lot of coaches forget about is just not doing a good enough job explaining the utility of check-ins, of the process, of why you're doing things the way that you do. So rather than you're going to check in with me every single week so we can collaborate, we can talk about stuff, it should be this is the most important part of the coaching relationship, especially if you're working like remotely with clients. This is the most important part because this is when we get to formally review what's working, what's not. If you check in every single week, I can promise you, you're going to see so much faster progress. You're going to get better results, and you're going to be in and out of here in no time. So like really showcasing like this is the thing. This is the thing that we need to be able to do versus like, look, you get a check-in with me once per week, So just that piece of the utility and the value and like because this is why we are doing this stuff can make a really big difference in people's behaviors. And I don't think coaches are doing that enough.
It's such a good point too, because it's really just like, here are the things that you get. Instead, it's like, actually, here's why you get them.
Yes.
And I think then that goes back to like the motivation factor. It's like, why are you actually here? What is the purpose of being here, right? If we compare, and I don't know if we can compare motivation and consistency, do we think that they are similar, or like one with the other, or like what is the difference there?
Yeah, I would say that we're kind of looking at consistency is more of like for like an equation, right? I'm such like a researcher.
No, you're right.
We're looking at an equation. Then the outcome, like the why, is consistency, right? Like we're seeking consistency. We're seeking consistent behaviors. So what is the inputs in order to get there? And I do think that motivation piece is one of those aspects of the equation in order to be more consistent. It's kind of how like I would look at it at least. That said, I think there could be like a positive feedback loop that once you are more consistent with something, you maybe feel more motivated to do it. But then again, then we're bringing in like, do you feel more motivated to do it because you've been consistent and that's helping build your identity and your growth mindset and your capability? There's just like so much stuff that can go into that. But to me, I wouldn't see them as like one and the same. I think again, it's like we could look at it if we're looking at consistency from a motivation lens specifically, then again, kind of coming back to that conversation of extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. And if you have a client or you yourself is not being consistent to something that you really are saying that you want to do, I think taking a step back from this motivation lens and thinking, well, where is my motivation to do this thing coming from? Is it coming from a place of like, I really value this. I have beliefs that are tied to it. I get enjoyment out of doing it. It's something that's really important to me. Or is it coming from a place of, my wife really wants me to do this, and so I have to do it, or I'm showing up because my friend is showing up, or I had a really negative comment made in my direction from my mother-in-law, and now I feel like I have to do this thing. So the first half of those statements are more intrinsically self-determined,
Right.
autonomous, and that's going to lead to more consistency, right? So I would bet a lot of the time from a motivation perspective, if consistency is lacking and it's a motivation problem, it's because it's more extrinsic in nature.
What if it's not a motivation problem? What else would it be?
Oh my gosh, it could be a lot of things. It could be, I mean, if we're thinking, okay, consistency, maybe we could go like self-control route. So self-control, willpower. So is that what is like the thing that we plug into the equation that's causing like lack of consistency? Maybe if someone thinks that they come to you all the time and are saying, I just feel like I need more self-control, or like I just don't have enough willpower in these situations in order to stay consistent. As soon as I get home from work, all I want to do is sit down with my husband and turn on the TV. I don't have any willpower to get myself to the gym at that point. So if those are the conversations that's going on, it's like, okay, well, that's definitely a piece of the puzzle too. Not saying it's ever just like one of these. It's likely there's likely many pieces in this equation that will then equal consistency or lack of. So with the self-control conversation, something that I talk with my students a lot about is your beliefs around self-control. So do you think that this is something that you either have or you don't have? And some people have more of, and some people just have less of, and that's just the way that the cookie crumbles, you know? Or do you think about self-control as, I have so much self-control at like the beginning of the day, but it gets depleted throughout the day, and then I don't have any by the end of the day? Do you actually believe that? Because if you do, then there's a good chance that's exactly what's going to happen. And there's a difference then if you were to instead believe, no matter what time of day, no matter how much self-control I've already had to use, pull out of my self-control bucket, like I can always refill it. I can always, like, it really depends so much on your beliefs, but this is like self-control beliefs specifically, which do make a difference. That said, too, we do know that self-control and stress are somewhat enemies. So if you are stressed out, we're really talking about like mini neuroscience lesson here. It's different parts of your brain. So self-control and deliberate decision making and attention control, all of that lives in your prefrontal cortex, like the big lobe behind your forehead.
Yeah.
Whereas stress is often, and I'm talking in like very vague, ambiguous terms, like obviously stress uses other parts of your brain, but when we say like it's more in your midbrain region with more like emotional reactions and like automatic reactions, habitual reactions even. So when you're stressed, you often want to go back to those things that are just like habitual and easy because your brain wants to reserve resources. So it goes back there. It doesn't necessarily want to put resources towards your prefrontal cortex, where you have to make this deliberate decision to sit down and think about what direction you want to go. You're stressed out and it's taking a lot of energy, so you don't want to put any more energy at that.
Yeah.
So I talk about them being sort of enemies in this case, but that's also then we can talk about, okay, so if self-control is causing lack of consistency for you, maybe we also need to look at your stress levels and how stress is impacting your self-control, which is therefore impacting your consistency, right? So yeah, lots of different things we could plug into the equation and talk about.
When you were talking about self-control and you were like, the belief system, I am this or I'm that, like we're just going back to the buckets of fixed versus growth mindset, though, right? Like, would you say that pretty much everything has those two buckets, really?
Yeah. Even like I mentioned stress briefly just now, and there's a lot of really interesting work on a stress is enhancing versus stress is debilitating mindset. So do you see, and like everyone listening, I would love for you to think about this. Do you see stress as a bad thing and it's something that makes your life worse, makes things harder? Or do you see it as something like, no, this is actually helps me be more productive and I get more done when I'm a little stressed out and I'm more focused when I have like an impending deadline? So what your belief system is around stress is also how stress is going to affect you, even on like a physiological level, which is really interesting too.
So interesting. Could we bring in the I'm busy in this too? I'm too busy to do this. Like, would that be kind of similar as well?
Yeah, I think it depends on where that's coming from. Like, I'm too busy. Okay. I think it would just be a question of why are you too busy?
Yeah.
What's making you too busy? What would make it so you weren't as busy that you couldn't do this other thing you're saying you want to do? Like, what would that look like? It's just like a lot of questions, like better understanding. Because again, every person who says, I'm too busy to do X, it's like, okay, well, maybe one person said already, but I really want to do X. It's really important to me. Now I would go back to that person and say, okay, I hear you. You're busy. We're all really busy. But you did tell me you wanted to do X.
Yeah.
So how does that fit in? And kind of like showcasing that contrast between the statements of I'm too busy to do this, but wait, you just told me you wanted to do this. So just tell me how those things work together so I can understand. That's the way that I would take that versus, I don't know, someone else who says, I'm too busy, but they haven't really made a strong statement that it's something they really want to do. And then it might become, hey, we haven't really had a conversation about how badly you really want to do this thing. You don't have to do this thing.
Yeah.
We could do Z instead of X, right? And that could probably still help you achieve your goal of whatever, or make you feel better, or whatever. So could we talk about what that would look like and if that could fit into your schedule better? And so kind of going that direction. So just like so much depends on the
There's
person.
so many ways you can like move a conversation too. And I did a course and read the book on motivational interviewing years ago. I know you talk about that. Is this a lot of this too? Just like knowing what questions to ask to get to
Absolutely.
place.
Like so much of, I think I started the episode making a comment about how it's so much better if someone has the idea themselves instead of you telling them. Like that's very much motivational interviewing coded.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Like the way that you ask the questions and reflect things back and summarize, all of that is it's a lot of motivational interviewing. So
interesting. God, I had a place I went. Oh, okay. Bring it back. I'm going to go back to consistency because we've talked about a couple different things. We've talked about the motivation being the consistency barrier, the stress, and then we've talked about self-control. Are we missing any? Do you feel like that we can kind of chat with right now to meet them where they're missing their consistency piece?
I mean, we could go more directions. To say, like we talked a little bit about goal setting already. Like habit formation was kind of tossed in there a little bit too, but that could be a big piece of it too. Like if we're talking about consistency and let's say starting a new behavior, thinking more about like, well, what is the behavior that you're currently doing instead? And this almost kind of like pulls back in motivation for a second too, because people always talk about like, I'm not motivated to go to the gym, right? But that's the thing that I should be doing and all of this stuff. And you're not consistent at it. But the truth is you still have motivation. You're just not motivated to do like the goal directed behaviors, right? You're motivated to go home and sit on the couch and turn on another episode and da 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 da. So the motivation's there. It's just like, why is it not flowing in that direction? So we can kind of like pick it apart there. And sometimes habits are a big part of that because you're going home and sitting on the couch, turning on the TV with your husband, because that's what you guys have done for the past 5 years in a row.
Right.
It's very habitual. It's automatic. It takes next to nothing for you to think about doing that versus like I'm starting this new thing and I'm adjusting my entire post-work schedule and now I have to go somewhere else and do this thing that is new to me and it's a lot more effort, a lot more effort. So I think thinking about what can make that easier, what can make this new habit that I'm trying to form as easy as possible. So how do we reduce that friction? And then also how do we increase the friction of the thing that we don't want to be doing anymore? So how do you make it as hard as possible to go home and sit on the couch and turn on Netflix, right? Like, what does that look like? You can get really creative here. Like take the TV down, the Wi-Fi is unplugged, like whatever you need to do. And then the flip side being like, instead of maybe even going home after work, you go directly to the gym. You get your workout set up beforehand. You hire a coach. So you have someone who has workouts for you and you can chat with when you're going to the gym and you're nervous about being there and you don't know what exercise is for which machine and all of those things. So just how do you make the thing you want to do to be more consistent easier and the thing that you don't want to do anymore because it's keeping you from being consistent harder?
I'm going to tell you 2 things that I do now that I feel like are really silly, but they help a lot. Maybe you guys can, and maybe you'll think of one too. Number 1, if we want to watch a show at night, we will no matter what, move the coffee table, and do at least 10 minutes of mobility before you even turn on the TV. We have to lay down and do that, and then we can turn on the TV.
I love it. Yeah.
The second thing I just started, and this is going to sound really dumb, but I literally tell my husband to take my phone and hide it from me throughout the day so that I won't be on it, because it's so distracting for me. Like, I could hide it myself, but then I know where it is. And he's like,
same.
Yeah. So I feel like those are silly things, but like I mean, if you're trying to break a habit, you've got to really like almost toddler yourself into this place where it becomes hard.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. No, that's perfect. The phone example is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, make it harder to actually do it. And I bet it works. I bet it works, you know?
I'm still like, well, I guess I could press this button on my Apple Watch to see where it is. No, like, you know, there's still other ways you can go about it. But do you have anything like that you do that could be
I mean, I do the phone thing too, but I don't have a husband in order to hide it for me. Unfortunately, I need to hire one of those, I guess. But no, I will put it in another room if I find myself like sitting at my desk working and like picking it up and doing like, why are you doing this? I will go take it and put it in a different room.
Yeah.
So it's not right there. And oftentimes that's enough for me, which like, again, people are like, that they are really simple things you can do that can make a pretty big impact. Like, oh, you don't want to be on your phone when you're working? Literally remove it from your workstation. Yes. Like, it can be that easy to make a difference, truly. Outside of that, I mean, there's not a lot that I'm like trying to keep myself from doing right now.
What are you trying to add in?
Add in?
I thought of another one that's like just more steps throughout the day, which is like a walk around the block after each meal.
Okay.
So that's just another like 10 minutes after each meal.
Yeah, like tack it on. Mm-hmm. I will say, like, on the step perspective, if I know I'm going to have a day, like, I'm not going to the gym, I'm going to be home a lot, maybe I'm like recording videos, stuff like that, that if I want to read my book that I'm really into, like that has to be taken downstairs to like my apartment complex treadmill and I can read it there.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of like temptation bundling. I don't know if you've heard that term before.
No, I haven't.
So you're bundling something that you don't really want to do with something that you do really want to do.
Okay.
So I'm taking my fantasy novel on my Kindle and going down and getting steps. Do I really want could I get myself to go down and just stand on the treadmill and walk for like 30 minutes? I'd be bored out of my mind. But if you want to read your book tonight, Kasey, this is how it has to be paired because you're at 5,000 steps and that's not looking cute, you know?
Yeah.
And I always feel so much better afterwards too. So there is that piece too, that once you get into the groove of doing that and bundling those things together, whatever, habit stacking is like another one, then you start to realize like, oh, I feel so much better now that I got an extra like 4,000 steps a day after I was like sitting pretty much all day.
Yeah.
And I got to get through like 4 chapters of my book and I'm really into it. Or like once you get started too, it's like, wow, it's been 15 minutes already. I would have sworn it's been 2 because I'm reading something that I'm really into, right?
Yeah.
You can do the same thing with like Netflix shows and stuff like that too. But yeah.
Cool. What can we leave the audience with if we take it all the way back to the beginning with the goal setting, New Year's resolution, like quick little tips we can give them to...
Yeah, I feel like there's a little bit of a central theme just around your beliefs and how powerful they are, whether it's you believe a New Year's resolution isn't going to work and then you try it and what do you know, it doesn't, or your beliefs about self-control or your own capabilities and like what you think you can actually achieve. There's a quote, I think this is on my wall and I can't remember. I think it's from Henry Ford and he said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of that piece is what I would want to leave everyone with, I think. Think more about your thoughts too.
Think more about your thoughts. And if it's helpful, you had mentioned this earlier, like write them down.
Yeah.
Voice notes. I'm a big fan of voice notes. Put in your notes app, like so that they're real and they're outside of your head. Yes. That is also really helpful too. But yeah, goal setting is great. You heard it here first from Kasey, and
don't be afraid to set a resolution.
Don't be afraid. And growth mindset is where we want to be. Any other resources? I feel like you've mentioned, I've mentioned a couple. You always mention growth mindset, Carol Dweck.
Yeah. That book is very good. I actually do have, this is a resource that I created. It is something that like clients can fill out.
Love it.
It's called a goal, what do I call it? Goal clarity worksheet.
Cool.
And it helps you get clear on the goal that you actually want. So it's not this like ambiguous thing, and it makes it more likely to actually happen. There's, speaking of equations, there's a little like equation in there. You put certain numbers in it based on like where you're at with things. It's really fun, I think. So I could definitely share that.
Yeah, we'll put in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here again. This was wonderful and always makes me think a lot more throughout the day.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Of course.